trainer at the gym where he works of being a fraud, causing the deputy boss to rise to his feet and verbally confront Ki-chol. This sparks a heated argument between the two, culminating in Ki-chol unleashing a single punch that sends the deputy boss tumbling to the floor. Unfortunately, Ki-chol's violent outburst resulted in his termination from the gym. Flashbacks reveal that Ki-chol was once a debt collector before transitioning to a career in boxing training. Cut to a woman named Soo-jin, who reaches out to Ki-chol to encourage him to make the most of his new job as a gym teacher. In the middle of his journey, Ki-chol's car tire suddenly blows out, forcing him to call for a tow truck to transport his vehicle. While waiting, he notices a missing person poster tacked onto a nearby bulletin board. Shortly after, the tow truck arrives to take his car for repairs. At his next destination, Ki-chol steps out of his car and stumbles upon a group of teenage schoolgirls engaged in a heated argument. Kang Yoo-jin, one of the students, confronts the group and physically assaults them in a fit of rage. Fortunately, Ki-chol intervenes and orders everyone to disperse. However, Yoo-jin threatens the other girls, warning them that if her best friend Soo-yeon doesn't return, she will take matters into her own hands. Elsewhere, Ki-chol encounters a male police officer named Kim Dong-soo, who appears to recognize him from their past. It turns out that Ki-chol was once Kim's boxing coach. Later that day, Yoo-jin returns home from school and pays a visit to Soo-yeon's grandmother, Mrs. Young-soon. Mrs. Young-soon is eager to hear news about Soo-yeon, but Yoo-jin sadly informs her that she still hasn't found her friend and plans to go to the police for help. Meanwhile, Ki-chol is practicing his boxing moves outside his house at night when he witnesses several men forcefully abducting a woman and shoving her into a car. Shocked and unsettled, Ki-chol realizes that he has seen similar crimes occur on the city streets multiple times before. In another place, a man named Kwak Byung-do receives a phone call from his subordinates, who inform him that they are currently punishing their target. Byung-do orders them to make sure the woman is taken care of, as he has an important meeting with the chairman to attend. On a dark and ominous night, Yoo-jin finds herself walking alone when she notices a mysterious man following her. Quick thinking and agility help Yoo-jin escape from the stranger as she hops onto a passing bus, leaving the man behind. The following day, Ki-chol begins his new job as a gym teacher at a school where he is introduced to the other teachers by the deputy principal. During his break, Ki-chol accidentally collides with a female student with great force, nearly causing her to fall over. Mr. Go, one of the male teachers, then approaches Ki-chol and tells him to head to the cafeteria, where he can find the group of students he has been searching for. However, upon arriving at the cafeteria, Ki-chol finds the students ignoring his calls. It is only when he spots the headmaster, Mr. Kim Ki-tae, that he rushes over to greet him. When Ki-chol goes to school, he sees Yoo-jin and asks about Soo-yeon, who hasn't paid her tuition in a year. Yoo-jin is annoyed and rushes off. Later in the teacher's room, Yoo-jin is warned by a female teacher for putting up Soo-yeon's poster. Ki-chol heads to the toilet, but he's shocked to see Ji-sung coming out of the female toilet. He then sees Yoo-jin leaving the school by climbing over the fence and gets confused by the situation. Mr. Go informs Ki-chol that students often smoke in the backyard of the school. During break time, Ki-chol plays with the puppet claw machine and Yoo-jin can only sigh at her teacher's behavior. Meanwhile, Ki-chol is also puzzled by the strange behavior of some of his colleagues. As Ki-chol walks in the city streets, he sees a campaign by Mr. Kim, who is running for governor. However, a man in the midst of the campaign crowd shouts that all the officials are liars, causing a commotion. After seeing Yoo-jin walking alone, Ki-chol secretly follows her to a club. Yoo-jin enters the club alone to look for Soo-yeon, but Ki-chol arrives just in time to bring her home safely. Outside the club, Ki-chol berates Yoo-jin for entering the club alone and tells her that issues like this should be investigated first. As a woman who works at the club leaves, Yoo-jin asks her about Soo-yeon. The woman tells Yoo-jin that only the club manager, a woman named Madame Lee Sewell, knows about the names of the comfort women. Meanwhile, Byung-do is hosting a corrupt detective named Song-hoon and his partner to avoid any trouble with the police regarding their business dealings. On the drive home, Yoo-jin asks Ki-chol about the woman they met at the club and expresses her desire to find out where Soo-yeon is. Ki-chol assures her that he will report the matter to the police, as he has a friend who is a police officer, and advises her not to worry too much. Yoo-jin, still annoyed with Ki-chol, asks him to drop her off by the side of the road. But as she walks, she notices a car following her. Suddenly, a man attacks her and she screams for help. Later, Ki-chol realizes that he left Yoo-jin's phone behind and rushes back to where he dropped her off. He is shocked to find Yoo-jin lying on the ground, unconscious. He takes her to the hospital and the corrupt detective Song-hoon promises to investigate the case. After the detectives leave, Ki-chol shares his suspicions with Dong-soo that something isn't right. The detectives didn't seem to care about the case. Dong-soo hesitantly reveals that they haven't received the report yet because they need approval from Yoo-jin's family. The next day, Ki-chol arrives at Mrs. Young-soon's office to seek her approval for reporting Yoo-jin and So-yoon's cases immediately. Mrs. Young-soon is hesitant at first, but after listening to Ki-chol's plea, she finally agrees to give him a letter of approval. Ki-chol immediately gives the letter to Dong-soo and asks him to take care of the report. However, because he was busy with the approval process, Ki-chol is late for school. He asks other teachers about Soo-yoon's whereabouts, but they seem indifferent to the matter. Mr. Go advises Ki-chol to drop the case if he doesn't want any trouble, but Ki-chol is determined to find Soo-yoon. Later, Yoo-jin approaches Ki-chol and asks him to accompany her to see Madame Lee Seul, but Ki-chol forbids her, citing the danger involved. When Yoo-jin is alone, Mr. Ji-sung approaches her and invites her for a chat. In the meantime, Dong-soo is having a hard time pursuing So-yoon's case because his superior has instructed him not to make a report. While at school, Ki-chol notices Yoo-jin walking with Ji-sung, but suddenly sees smoke coming from the girls' toilet. Despite his attempts to get the students to confess, they remain silent until Ki-chol discovers a hidden camera inside the bathroom. Furious, Ki-chol rushes to the vice principal's office to report the camera, but instead of taking action, she scolds him for involving the police in Soo-yoon's case. Undeterred, Ki-chol watches the footage from the camera and is shocked to discover that Ji-sung was the one who installed it. In the teacher's room, Ji-sung receives a gift from his students, who idolize him. Mr. Go asks for his help to lift something, but Ji-sung refuses and quickly rushes away. After Ji-sung leaves the office, Ki-chol arrives and quickly checks Ji-sung's laptop. He discovers a conversation between Ji-sung and Yoo-jin, as well as a message from Soo-yoon a few days prior. Meanwhile, Yoo-jin is alone and is picked up by Ji-sung. Ki-chol attempts to contact Dong-soo for assistance, but Dong-soo is unavailable due to being reprimanded by his superiors. Ki-chol reaches out to Yoo-jin and warns her that Ji-sung is dangerous, urging her to be cautious. He also reveals that Ji-sung was the one who picked up Soo-yoon the night she disappeared. Yoo-jin is unable to respond as she was with Ji-sung at the time. When they approach a red light, Yoo-jin attempts to escape, but Ji-sung quickly notices that her seatbelt has come off and immediately secures it. On the way to Ji-sung's house, Yoo-jin reveals their destination to Ki-chol. In an attempt to provoke Ji-sung, Yoo-jin repeatedly brings up Soo-yoon and soon finds herself knocked unconscious by Ji-sung. When Yoo-jin regains consciousness, she is horrified to find herself tied up and held captive in Ji-sung's home. While Ji-sung is out of the room, Yoo-jin notices Soo-yoon's phone on the table and begins to search through it. In the meantime, Ki-chol arrives at Ji-sung's house and forcefully enters the premises. He confronts Ji-sung and demands an explanation for Soo-yoon's phone in his possession. Ji-sung explains that on the night of Soo-yoon's disappearance, he gave her a ride and dropped her off at a gas station as per her request. Upon returning to the spot later that night, Ji-sung found only Soo-yoon's phone on the ground. He claims that he did not harm her in any way and has been keeping the phone with him in the hopes of returning it to her family. After Yoo-jin reports Ji-sung to the police and he's arrested, Ki-chol, who had previously reported Ji-sung to the police, asks them to investigate properly this time. He meets Dong-soo outside the police station that night and updates him on the situation. Ki-chol gives Soo-yoon's phone to Dong-soo and asks him to fix it, hoping to find more evidence related to her disappearance. In the meantime, Ji-sung is being interrogated by the police, but he remains fixated on Mr. Kim's campaign book. As Ki-chol and Dong-soo work to uncover the truth, Byung-do and his men receive word that Ki-chol has brought evidence about Soo-yoon. Upon learning of this development, Byung-do quickly informs Mr. Kim about the situation. However, Mr. Kim is not pleased and slaps Byung-do for not handling the matter discreetly. Mr. Kim then contacts the police commissioner to intervene in the investigation. On the other hand, when Yoo-jin returns home, she notices a strange man watching her from inside a car. Feeling uneasy, she quickly goes inside and locks the door. The next day, the teachers at school are stunned to learn that their colleague Ji-sung is a pervert who secretly recorded girls in the school bathroom. They also discover that Ji-sung had exchanged messages with Soo-yoon on the night she disappeared, raising suspicions about his involvement in her disappearance. Despite Ki-chol's attempts to report Soo-yoon's disappearance and concerns about Ji-sung's behavior, he is surprisingly kicked out of the school by Mr. Kim. Ki-chol looks at Mr. Kim with suspicion, wondering why he is protecting Ji-sung. As Ki-chol ponders the situation, Dong-soo suddenly contacts him with news about Soo-yoon. Ki-chol rushes to the location to find many policemen there making observations, leaving him to wonder what new evidence has been uncovered. At the same time, Ki-chol and Yoo-jin arrive at the scene of the investigation. They are met with the devastating news that the body found is indeed Soo-yeon's. As they process the news, Dong-soo is covertly watching two corrupt police officers and contacts his friend to report the evidence he has found. Later, Ki-chol and Yoo-jin visit Mrs. Young-soon in the hospital, where they discover that she is becoming increasingly ill due to her grief over Soo-yeon's disappearance. Ki-chol realizes the impact that the tragedy has had on the people around him and becomes even more determined to find justice for Soo-yeon. Meanwhile, Dong-soo takes the opportunity to enter the corrupt police officer's office and investigate their activities. Unfortunately, he is caught on CCTV and the officers begin to plot against him. In desperation, Mr. Kim turns to Police Commissioner Choi So-jong for help, knowing that So-jong owes him a favor for helping him secure his position. Despite So-jong's reluctance to get involved in the situation, he ultimately agrees to help Mr. Kim due to their past association. Ki-chol is still at the hospital when he receives a message from Dong-soo that Soo-yeon had once sent a message to Madame Lee Seul before she disappeared. However, before Dong-soo can provide more information, he is suddenly attacked and knocked unconscious. Ki-chol decides to leave the hospital without telling Yoo-jin where he is going. He heads to the club to find Madame Lee Seul and learn more about Soo-yeon's message. However, as soon as he arrives, Byung-doo's men report his presence to their boss. Ki-chol finally meets Madame Lee Seul and asks her about Soo-yeon. She reveals that Soo-yeon worked as an entertaining girl at the club and was asked to serve the police commissioner, Mr. So-jong, on the night she disappeared. Soo-yeon was sold to Mr. So-jong by Mr. Kim, who hoped that the commissioner would help him launch a campaign for governor. However, Soo-yeon hit Mr. So-jong that night and ran away. Back to Ki-chol, who confronts a group of people carrying baseball bats inside the club. Fearlessly, he approaches them and beats them one by one, demanding to know about Soo-yeon's whereabouts. After the dust settles, Ki-chol turns to Byung-doo, the club owner, and presses him for answers. Byung-doo reveals that he found Soo-yeon being held captive in a gas station restroom by Ji-sung, the son of Mr. Kim. With this new information, Ki-chol rushes off to find Soo-yeon. Meanwhile, Dong-soo contacts him and reports that Soo-yeon's phone has gone missing and that Ji-sung was released the previous night. Meanwhile, Yoo-jin goes to the hospital restroom where she is suddenly grabbed by a mysterious man who turns out to be Ji-sung. Meanwhile, Ki-chol is informed by the hospital staff that Yoo-jin has disappeared, and her phone is not traceable. Flashback to the night when Ji-sung killed Soo-yeon. Mr. Kim arrives after being called by his son. He finds out what happened and destroys Soo-yeon's phone to eliminate the evidence. Ki-chol searches for Yoo-jin at Ji-sung's house but fails to find her. Yoo-jin notices Ki-chol's arrival in another room. Ki-chol searches frantically for her in Ji-sung's house. He hears a noise coming from a room and bangs on the door, but Ji-sung quickly pulls Yoo-jin away and hides her. In another room, Mr. Kim is present, and he tells Ji-sung to leave the country to avoid further trouble. When Ki-chol continues to search for Yoo-jin, he comes across a secret room where he overhears a conversation between Mr. Kim and Ji-sung. In the shocking revelation, it is finally revealed that Mr. Kim was the one who killed Soo-yeon to eliminate any witnesses and maintain his reputation as he was planning to run for governor. Yoo-jin, who was hiding in the closet, is shocked to learn that Mr. Kim is the killer of her best friend. She accidentally makes a sound, which alerts Mr. Kim. In a fit of rage, he repeatedly punches Ji-sung. However, Mr. Kim's phone suddenly rings, and he leaves the room to take an important meeting with Mr. So-jong. This gives Yoo-jin a chance to escape from the closet. Just as Yoo-jin is about to be attacked by Ji-sung, she hears someone banging on the door from another room. It's Ki-chol, who has finally found them. He fights Ji-sung and manages to secure Yoo-jin. In another location, Mr. Kim is successful in his bid to become governor. Meanwhile, as Ki-chol drives Yoo-jin to the hospital, she reveals that Mr. Kim is responsible for killing Soo-yeon. Once he drops off Yoo-jin at the hospital, Ki-chol heads back to confront Mr. Kim and settle the score. When Mr. Kim celebrates his recent election win with Commissioner So-jong, the police suddenly surround them. The following day, news outlets reveal that Mr. Kim, who just became the governor, is responsible for Soo-yeon's death. It is also reported that So-jong and his team were involved in the murder. In the meantime, Dong-soo assists Ki-chol in moving out as he is going back to his hometown. However, before leaving, Ki-chol visits Yoo-jin at the hospital. When Yoo-jin wakes up, she sees her favorite doll on her desk and feels happy. In the final scene, Ki-chol stops at the end of the bridge and sees that the poster of Soo-yeon has been removed. He feels relieved as the truth about her murder has been revealed. The movie concludes at this point. The moral of the story is to always remember to lock the closet door before hiding in it, or else you might accidentally reveal yourself as a witness to a murder. If you're going to commit a crime, make sure you don't accidentally leave your favorite doll behind as evidence.